Okay, well, good morning. What do we want to do today? We want to get into the Christmas story. But before we get into the actual Christmas story itself with Mary and Joseph, what I want to do is set up the context. I want to give us the history of the prophecy, the history of what was going on. And so, a lot of our stories at the Christmas time begin with Isaiah. Of course, Isaiah 9 was the classic, unto us a child is born, a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and you know the rest of it. We'll read that today. We'll finish with that today. But I want to put that all in context because we love those verses. We have songs about those verses. The government shall be upon his shoulders, hallelujah, all that kind of thing. But what's the context? What did it mean to those listening when it was first written? So I want to take us back into history. I want to give us the culture and the history and what was happening during those times when Isaiah wrote. Because Isaiah was the prophet that lived during the tumultuous times of the nation Israel. During the time when Isaiah lived, the northern kingdom was destroyed. The southern kingdom was in danger of being destroyed. Life just wasn't all that good. Let me, I don't know even where to start. So let me start with a guy named Tiglath-Pileser. Tiglath-Pileser was the king of the Assyrians who really began the ascendancy of the Assyrian empire. The Assyrians, they were, Nineveh was their capital. They were northern Iraq, Iran, Turkey, eastern Turkey. That was really the empire of the Assyrians. The Assyrians at this point in time, during the time of Isaiah, when he wrote Isaiah 9, they were ascending to be the greatest empire of that day. And so there was great nervousness in the ancient Near East about the Assyrians. They were a powerful, cruel people. They were ascending to power even greater than the power of the Egyptians, and the Egyptians were always a powerful force. So in between the Egyptians and the Assyrians, you had those from Damascus, or often called Syria, Damascus, Amram, or Aram sometimes. We'll read that in our verses today. And so Aram, Damascus, Syria, whatever name you want to give them, they got together with the northern tribes of Israel, the 10 northern tribes, often called Northern Israel or Ephraim. A few other names they're given, but in our passages would be Ephraim. And the king of Aram, whose name was Rezin, teamed up with the king of Ephraim, whose name was something or other. We'll find that out. Kizar, I think, son of Remaliah. And they said, hey, we've got to protect ourselves against the Assyrians because the Assyrians are going to come and they're going to try to wipe us out. So let's get together and let's put our armies together and let's protect ourselves from them. And then they said, well, we need Judah, the southern Israel kingdom, to be with us. The more army we have, the better off we are, so let's invite them to come. So Judah was considering it. Ahaz was the king of the southern kingdom at this time. And Ahaz was kind of stuck. He didn't know what to do. He knew the Assyrians were the empire in the coming soon. And he thought, well, maybe I should align myself with Assyria. Maybe I'll be safer that way. But then he thought, well, maybe I better align myself with Ephraim and Aram, Syria, because they're threatening me right now. And what do I do? 6 of one, half dozen the other kind of thing. So he was kind of wishy-washy about the whole thing. And as a result, Aram, Rezin, and Pekah, that was his name, Pekah, son of Remaliah, the king of northern Egypt, or northern Israel, decided they would attack the southern kingdom. And if they weren't going to be with them, well, they'll destroy them, or they'll force the rest of them to be with them, or whatever the case might be. So we find this happening in Isaiah chapter 7. So if you have your Bibles, turn to Isaiah 7. We won't read all of it. We'll just read bits and pieces of it. And we'll go through a lot of scripture. After this, we're going to jump back into 2 Kings. And right away, I'm going to apologize to Dan because I gave scripture in a certain order to Dan before, and it's not going to be in that order now. So just be patient. It will get up on the screen eventually when Dan figures out what I'm doing, and maybe when I figure out what I'm doing. So, and I try to wait as long as I can before I give Dan the order, and many times it changes. Sorry about that, Dan. So Isaiah 7. When Ahaz, son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, was king of Judah, King Rezin of Aram, or Syria, or Damascus, and Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, marched up to fight against Jerusalem, but they could not overpower it. So that's what I was talking about. They were going to destroy Judah or force them to join their forces against Assyria. Verse 2, now the house of David was told, Aram has allied itself with Ephraim. So the hearts of Ahaz and his people were shaken, as the trees of the forest are shaken by the wind. Ahaz was not a very good king, not a very strong king. That's why he was really wishy-washy about, do I support the Assyrians? Do I support my neighbors to the north? What do I do? And when he discovered that they were coming against him, he was very afraid. Verse 5, Aram, Ephraim, and Remaliah's son have plotted your ruin, saying, let us invade Judah. Let us tear it apart and divide it among ourselves and make the son of Tabeel king over it. And then if we jump down to verse 17. Verse 17 of Isaiah 7. The Lord will bring on you and on your people and on the house of your father a time unlike any since Ephraim broke away from Judah. He will bring the king of Assyria. So, Ahaz, the king of the southern kingdom, couldn't make up his mind, wasn't sure if he should ally himself with the northern kingdom and Syria or with the Assyrians. As a result, he's not in anybody's alliance, and he gets war placed upon himself by the Syrians and, we'll find, by the Assyrians. So he's in the middle of it all. Verse 18. In that day the Lord will whistle for flies from the distant streams of Egypt and for bees from the land of Assyria. They will all come and settle in the sheep ravines and in the crevices in the rocks, on all the thorn bushes and in all the water holes. In that day the Lord will use a razor hired from beyond the river, the king of Assyria, to shave your head and the hair of your legs and to take off your beards also. A sign of shame, a sign of being conquered, was to have your head shaved and all the hair shaved off of you. And of course, God's not talking about actual physical bees. He's referring, bees are a symbol of the many, many soldiers of the Assyrians and of the Egyptians, and they're in the middle of it all, and their country's going to be invaded, and they really don't have too much of a chance. Verse 21, in that day a man will keep alive a young cow and 2 goats, and because of the abundance of the milk they give, he will have curds to eat. All who remain in the land will eat curds and honey. In that day, in every place where there was 1,000 vines worth 1,000 silver shekels, there will be only briars and thorns. Men will go there with bow and arrow, for the land will be covered with briars and thorns. In other words, instead of being a vineyard which produces something, it's now going to be a forest in which the animals hide in. As for all the hills once cultivated by the hoe, you will no longer go there for fear of the briars and the thorns. They will become places where cattle are turned loose and where sheep run. So at this time, the prophecy is that your land, Israel, is going to be a wasted land. You won't have production in the land. You won't have order in the land. It'll be chaos. It'll be thorn bush. It'll be bramble. It'll be forest. It'll be a place of wild animals and wild sheep, and that's indicative of you will not have a nation left. And so that's the days of Isaiah. That's what's happening in the time of Isaiah. Let me take you back to 2 Kings 17. So this is where it gets tricky for Dan. 2 Kings 17. It's almost the reverse order of what I gave you, actually, Dan. Yep. You're welcome. 2 Kings 17. We're going to go, again, this is still in the days of Ahaz, king of Judah. So, 2 Kings 17, chapter 1, verse 1. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, Hosea, son of Elah, became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 9 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, but not like the kings of Israel who preceded him. So, in verse 3, Shalmaneser was the son of Tiglath-Pileser. So Tiglath-Pileser was 745 till, I don't know, he reigned about 12 years. So Shalmaneser comes along. Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up to attack Hosea, who had been Shalmaneser's vassal and had paid him tribute. But the king of Assyria discovered that Hosea was a traitor, for he had sent envoys to So, king of Egypt, and he no longer paid the tribute to the king of Assyria as he had done year by year. Therefore, Shalmaneser seized him and put him in prison. The king of Assyria invaded the entire land, marched against Samaria, and laid siege to it for 3 years. In the 9th year of Hosea, the king of Assyria captured Samaria and deported the Israelites to Assyria. He settled them in Hala in Gozan on the Habor River in the town of the Medes. So Shalmaneser comes along. Obviously, the alliance between the Syrians and Ephraim or Samaria didn't work against the Assyrians. They overpowered them. They offered them a chance to just pay tribute and stay there. Hosea decides, I'm not going to pay tribute anymore. He sends money to Egypt. He says, Egypt, we're going to ally with you. Would you please come and destroy the Assyrians for us, and we'll be your vassals instead of theirs. The Assyrians find out about it. Shalmaneser comes and says, okay, I gave you a chance, but now I'm wiping you out. So now northern Israel is wiped out. Look at verse 24 of chapter 17. The king of Assyria brought people from Babylon, Cutha, Avra, Hamath, and Sepharvaim, and settled them in the towns of Samaria to replace the Israelites. They took over Samaria and lived in its towns. So the Israelites are gone, and they're replaced with people from other portions of the Assyrian kingdom. Verse 26, it was reported to the king of Assyria, the people you deported and resettled in the towns of Samaria do not know what that God of that country requires. He sent lions among them, which are killing them off, because the people do not know what he requires. So the king of Assyria gave this order: have one of the priests you took captive from Samaria go back to live there and teach the people what the God of the land requires. So one of the priests who had been exiled from Samaria came to live in Bethel and taught them how to worship the Lord. So there's chaos in the land. Lions are attacking. It's a wild place. It's a chaotic place. They're not getting design and order in that land. And so they figure it's got to be because we've angered the God of the land and we don't know the God of the land. So help us to know the God of the land to bring order back to this place. So the Assyrian king says, oh yeah, I get it. It's you got to appease the gods. So he sends a priest from Israel to tell them how to appease the God of the land. So he begins to teach them how to worship the Lord. Verse 29, nevertheless, each national group made its own gods in the several towns where they settled and set them up in the shrines the people of Samaria had made at the high places. The men of Babylon made Succoth, Benoth, the men from these are crazy names. The men from Cutha made Nergal, and the men from Hamath made Ashima. The Avites made Dibzah and Tertak, and the Saravites burned their children in the fire sacrifices to Adremelech and Amarelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. So they are each one of the nationalities that the king of Assyria has planted in the nation Israel have set up their own gods, and they're practicing their own religious practices, and they're sacrificing their children, and they're doing all sorts of detestable practices, and so they're doing that at the same time as they're trying to appease Jehovah, because they figure, well, we should appease Jehovah, the God of this land, but we're bringing our own gods because they're gods of our lands, and so we'll just serve them all. And so there's more religious chaos. There's more spiritual chaos going on at the time. In verse 32, they worshiped the Lord, but they also appointed all sorts of their own people to officiate for them as priests in the shrines at the high places. They worshiped the Lord, but they also served their own gods in accordance with the customs of the nations from which they had been brought. So they're not really looking towards the God of Israel, Jehovah, as the God, as we have to change our lives and put it in order for him. They're just looking to appease him. And what do we need to do to make sure we've got all our bases covered? And so there's all sorts of shrines, all sorts of gods, false gods, all sorts of evil practices, all sorts of spiritual decay and confusion going on in Israel, which is a far, far step away from the way God set them up. So they're far away. So they were supposed to worship only God. They didn't. And so verse 41, the end of the chapter says, even while these people were worshiping the Lord, they were serving their idols. To this day, their children and grandchildren continue to do as their fathers did. So they're just trying to add another god to cover their bases, as it were, to maybe appease him in some way so that they could find some sort of order, some sort of design, some sort of peace, some sort of control over their lives. And this is what's going on. And then we hit chapter 18 of 2 Kings. And we read that in the third year of Hosea, son of Elah, king of Israel, Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 5 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. We find out his mother's name in verse 3. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father David did. So there's a new king down in Judah, southern Israel. He does what is right in the eyes of the Lord. They don't want to align with the northern kingdom, which no longer exists. So they're trying to still worship the true and one God. But all around them, nobody is. And the Assyrians are still in control. The Assyrians are still attacking. The Assyrians are still trying to destroy now Jerusalem. They've destroyed the northern kingdom, Samaria, already. They've destroyed Damascus. They've destroyed all the nations around them, even in control of Egypt. But there's this one little nation, Israel, in which, or southern Israel, Jerusalem, which they yet do not have. And so the story picks up in verse 17 of 2 Kings 18. A new king named Sennacherib. He's the next, or actually the fourth king after Tiglath-Pileser. There's Tiglath-Pileser, Shalmaneser, and a guy named Sargon, which we hear really nothing of because he didn't reign that long. And then Sennacherib, the next great king of Assyria. He comes to Jerusalem and he threatens Jerusalem. And he says, I'm going to wipe you guys off the face of this earth. I am finally going to take over what my fathers couldn't take over, and we're going to cement ourselves as the empire, and you guys are soon to be gone. So they set up ramparts. They begin to besiege Jerusalem. Jerusalem says, man, we are done. There's no way we can stand against the forces of the Assyrians. Nobody else did. The Damascus couldn't. Samaria couldn't. Egypt couldn't. Nobody can. So we're in trouble. Hezekiah is a good king. Hezekiah serves the Lord. Hezekiah says, okay, the only way this is going to work out is if we pray and we trust God. So he prays. His prayer is found in chapter 19. I won't read that prayer for sake of time, but that's found in chapter 19, verses 14 through 19. He prays, God responds. Here's the response of God in verse 20 of chapter 19 of 2 Kings. Then Isaiah, son of Amos, see, Isaiah is there. Isaiah is prophesying during this time. Isaiah, son of Amos, sent a message to Hezekiah. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I've heard your prayers concerning Sennacherib, king of Assyria. This is what the word of the Lord has spoken. And he goes on to say that you're being mocked, you're being destroyed, you're coming against, but I am going to protect you, God says, because you're my nation, you're my bride kind of thing, and I will protect you. That's all the way through verse 34. In verse 35, we get the result of that prayer. We get the result of God's promise. That night, the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 men in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, broke camp and withdrew. He returned to Nineveh and he stayed there. One day, while he was worshiping in the temple of his god Nisroch, his sons Adremelech and Sharezer cut him down with the sword, and they escaped to the land of Ararat. And Esarhaddon, his son, succeeded him as king. So Israel is saved. Hezekiah trusts God. Israel's saved. All this chaos going around. There's still a hope that God is going to save them and help them. Esarhaddon becomes the next king of Assyria. Esarhaddon still is looking to destroy Judah. Chapter 20, Hezekiah gets sick. Hezekiah prays to God. God gives him a sign. Hezekiah recovers. During these times, Judah, the southern kingdom, the only kingdom that has not aligned with Assyria yet, gives a call to Babylon. Says, hey, Babylonians, you're the up-and-comers. You're starting to really rise on the scene. It looks like you're giving Assyria trouble, which they did. That's why at this point, the Assyrian Empire begins to start breaking down because there's this war that's going on against the Babylonians, who at one time supported the Assyrians, but then said, hey, we don't want to support you anymore. We want to take over you. So there's this battle going on their eastern front. On the western front, there's still Egypt and Aram and Judah and all the other nations. And so the king Hezekiah calls, or whatever they do in that day, sends a carrier pigeon and says to the Babylonians, we want to align ourselves with you. You guys are going to be our salvation from the Assyrians, so we will help you. We'll be your outpost on the western side, and you can fight your battle on the eastern side, and we'll come together and we'll help you. So, verse 12, at that time of 2 Kings 20, verse 12, at that time, Merodach-Baladan, son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent Hezekiah letters and a gift because he'd heard of Hezekiah's illness. And he says, hey, I'm glad that you're doing better. I've heard that your God saved you. That's pretty amazing. Glad we're in this together. Hezekiah, he's so happy about it. He invites them and says, hey, come to my palace and see all of my riches. It's just amazing. And so he comes, and God's upset with him, and God says, what have you done? And he says, well, I'm just so happy that I'm healthy and you saved me. And so I thought I would celebrate with our allies, and I showed them my riches of my kingdom and all that I can do to help them, and I'm just really trying to make sure that they're going to stay our allies. God basically says, okay, well, what about me? I'm the one who saved you. I'm the one who saved you from Sennacherib before. I'm the one who gave your health back, and yet you want to praise and worship Babylon rather than me? And Hezekiah says, yeah, I guess that's kind of the way it played out. Sorry about that. And God says, as a result of that, I'm going to bring the Babylonians to destroy you, but not in your lifetime, because I made a promise to you. So Hezekiah says, cool, okay, I won't be alive to see the destruction, so I'm good. I'll live out my life in peace. Thanks, God. That's great. And that's where we, pick up. Well, we don't pick up the story from there, but then we know the Babylonians come, and it's Nebuchadnezzar that destroys Judah and takes them off into captivity. So this is what's going on during the times of Isaiah. There's really not much faithfulness at all to Jehovah, to God. There's a political intrigue. There's dependency upon other nations. There's no real, we're going to trust you, God. The northern kingdom's destroyed. The southern kingdom is ready to be destroyed. Isaiah is part of that whole picture. And Isaiah comes along and says, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you not returning to God? And so we pick up the story in Isaiah chapter 8. And this is, I think, where we finally get on track for Dan. Isaiah chapter 8, verse 1. I guess I'll read verse 1. The Lord said to me, take a large scroll and write on it with an ordinary pen, Maher Shalal Hashbaz. And I will call in Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Jeberechiah as a reliable witness for me. So, I don't have time to explain all that. At any rate, Isaiah has a son, and they call him Maher Shalal Hashbaz in fulfillment of the prophecy. And he says in verse 4, before the boy knows how to say my father or my mother, the wealth of Damascus and the plunder of Samaria will be carried off by the king of Assyria. So prophesying the destruction of the Assyrians and the northern kingdom of Israel. So the Lord, he says in verse 7, the Lord is about to bring against them the mighty floodwaters of the river, the king of Assyria with all his pomp. It will overflow all its channels, run over all its banks, and sweep into Judah, swirling over it, passing through it, and reaching up to the neck. Its outspread wings will cover the breadth of your land, O Emmanuel. We're going to stop there because that's significant. So, once again, the Syrians and the northern kingdom have been destroyed by the Israelites, or by the Assyrians. There's not much left of the kingdom of Israel. Isaiah says the Assyrians are going to sweep into your country as well. They won't fully destroy you, but really you're only going to have Jerusalem left. And he calls them, O Emmanuel. Now we know from the Christmas story in Matthew chapter 1, verse 23, that his name, Jesus, will be called Emmanuel, God with us. What's the connection? The connection is when God first set up the nation Israel, he said, I will be your God. You will be my people, and I will be with you. They were known as the nation of Emmanuel, God with us. All of the nations around there, when Israel was coming to the promised land, knew that God was with them. They knew that their God was the creator God, was the mighty God, was mightier than any other gods, and they were scared. And that's why they tried to destroy Israel, but they couldn't because Emmanuel was with them. God was with them. And so Isaiah says, O Emmanuel, you people who God was with you, God should have been with you, is no longer with you. The nation who is known as God is with them is now being destroyed. And look at the twist that happens in verse 9 and 10. Raise the war cry, you nations, and be shattered. Listen, all you distant lands, prepare for battle and be shattered. Prepare for battle and be shattered. Devise your strategy, but it will be thwarted. Purpose your plan, but it will not stand, for God is with us. The Assyrians. God is now with the Assyrians. Emmanuel, God was with the Israelites. All of the plans of the Israelites are shattered. God's no longer with them. God has left them. God is now with the Assyrians, and they are called God with us. Things have been turned on their head. This is what God promised long time ago in the covenant. If you don't serve me as God, if you don't keep me as the only one God, if you don't follow me as God, I will turn you over to other nations. You'll be in exile, and I will no longer be with you. My nation, which is supposed to be God with me, God with us nation, Emmanuel nation, is no longer that. And now God is using the Assyrians, and the Assyrians claim to be God with us. It goes on in verse 11, the Lord spoke to me with a strong hand upon me, warning me not to follow the way of this people. He said, do not call conspiracy everything that these people call conspiracy. Do not fear what they fear, and do not dread it. The Lord Almighty is the one you are to regard as holy. He is the one you are to fear. He is the one you are to dread, and he will be a sanctuary, both for the houses of Israel, for both houses of Israel, and will be a stone that causes men to stumble and a rock that makes them fall. And for the people of Jerusalem, he will be a trap and a snare. Many of them will stumble, they will fall and be broken, and they will be snared and captured. Both a prophecy of near term and far term. The Israelites are going to stumble and fall because they no longer follow God. They've rejected God. God has been a stumbling stone to them. God said, if you do this, I will be your God. If you don't do that, I will leave you as your God. They stumbled over those requirements. They fell. They were broken to pieces because they decided not to follow God. It's also a far prophecy, speaking of Jesus. We read in the New Testament in 1 Peter, I believe it is, that Jesus is called the capstone or the cornerstone. And he will cause many to stumble. Hebrews as well, by the way. He will cause many people to stumble and to fall. Exactly what it says here. So we begin to get this prophecy of the importance of God in people's lives. The importance of God in the lives of the Israelites, and the importance of God in the lives of people moving forward in our times. There's a prophecy of Jesus here. Verse 16 says, bind up the testimony and seal up the law among my disciples. I will wait for the Lord who is hiding his face from the house of Jacob. I will put my trust in him. Here I am, and the children the Lord has given me. We are signs and symbols in Israel from the Lord Almighty who dwells on Mount Zion. Verse 19, when men tell you to consult mediums and spiritists who whisper and mutter, should not a people inquire of their God? Why consult the dead on behalf of the living? To the law and to the testimony. If they do not speak according to this word, they have no light of dawn. Distressed and hungry, they will roam through the land. When they are famished, they will become enraged and, looking upward, will curse their king and their God. They will look toward the earth and see only distress and darkness and fearful gloom, and they will be thrust into utter darkness. This is the culture. This is the history. This is the situation in which Isaiah lives. It's chaos. It's confusion. It's darkness. Look at the words. It's distress. There's war all around. They know their time is almost up. They don't believe they have a future anymore. It's all distress and darkness and fearful gloom. There's no light, there's no happiness, there's no joy, there's no future, there's no hope, there's no laughter, there's no, hey, we are doing great, and I can look ahead at attending my children's and great-grandchildren's weddings. It's just no future, there's no hope. It's all darkness and gloom and distress, and they're thrust into utter darkness. There's no hope. There's nothing in which they can look forward to. The Assyrians are attacking. They're all around them. Nobody's helping them. All of their hope in the Egyptians has melted away. The Babylonians are supposed to help them, but they come and end up destroying them. There is nothing that they can look to save them from their distress. And that's when we hit chapter 9. Nevertheless, chapter 9 is the great chapter. Nevertheless. What does nevertheless mean? It means no matter what is happening today, something will change. In spite of what's happening to change, in light of what's happening today, something different is coming. Nevertheless, don't take what you look at today as the only reality that will be with you forever. Nevertheless means whatever the reality is now, it does not mean it has to be the reality tomorrow. Nevertheless means Today's situation is not tomorrow's reality or tomorrow's inevitability. Nevertheless, despite what you see today, no matter what your circumstances are today, no matter the stress and the darkness and the gloom you have today, does not mean, does not guarantee, does not set in place, does not mean that the motion will move forward, that it has to be that way and will be that way tomorrow. Nevertheless, says whatever the reality is now, doesn't mean it's your reality tomorrow. And so Isaiah says, nevertheless, don't look at today's reality and think it's going to be like this for the rest of your life. He says, nevertheless, there will come a time. There will be no more gloom. It says that in just a verse before, they're going to be living in fearful gloom. He says, nevertheless, tomorrow, the next day, in the future, there will be no more gloom. For those who were in distress, past tense, you were in distress. In the past, he humbled the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. Again, that's the northern kingdoms. Ephraim, Naphtali, that he humbled them, he destroyed them. But in the future, there is a future. There's hope. There's something to look forward to. In the future, he will honor Galilee of the Gentiles by the way of the sea. Galilee was in the land of Ephraim, Zebulun, and Naphtali. In the future, there is a future. There is hope. There is something to look forward to. Nevertheless, even though today looks hopeless, even though today looks like there is no future, there is nothing good coming on the horizon, I've just got to grin and bear it, and probably not even grin. I've just got to somehow die, because there's nothing to look forward to. Nevertheless, the prophet says, there is a future. There is hope. There is a tomorrow. There is something to look forward to. There is change coming. There is something different that's going to happen. There will be honor that comes to Galilee of the Gentiles. There will be honor again in your life. There will be appreciation. Honor is to appreciate someone, to encourage or be encouraged by someone. It's to be lifted up and lifted out. If you honor someone, you lift them up and you lift them out of their situation. You encourage them. You help them. You comfort them. You give them value. You give them a sense of purpose and a sense of being. Nevertheless, no matter what the situation is today, no matter what you're facing and what you think that there is no future, or you've determined the future will be exactly the same it is today, nevertheless, there will be something to look forward to. There will be a different future. There will be a hope. There will be honor. You will be lifted up. You will be appreciated. You will be held in regard. Your life is not defined by today. There is a future. There is a hope. There is looking forward to. No matter what it looks like today. Look what he says in verse 2. The people walking in darkness, those who had no hope, who had no light, who had no thought of something good will happen to us. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. Not a bit of a, they've seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. It's begun. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, as we say today. And it's going to shine ever brighter. We know when the sun comes up at dawn, it doesn't go back down. It keeps coming up. And it comes up brighter and brighter and brighter till the full noon sun. Isaiah is saying there's a light that has dawned, and it's a great light that has dawned. It's not just a partial light. It's not just a little bit of a light that's obscured by the clouds and the rain like we have today. It's a great light. And you will see the fullness of this light, and it's just starting. There's hope at the end of the tunnel. What you see and are living and experiencing today in your situation is not the way it's going to be in the future. There's honor, there's hope, there's light, there's life, and it's just dawning, and it's just beginning. And he says in verse 3 about this light, you have enlarged the nation. You've increased their joy. This is a nation that has no joy. They're living in a time where it's joyless. There's nothing to celebrate. There's no looking forward to weddings or graduations or great-grandchildren. There's nothing like that because they know they're being destroyed. They don't have hope. They don't have a future. They don't have anything. Their nation is not being enlarged. It's being narrowed. It's being confined. It's being stricken. It's being taken away from them. And Isaiah comes into this and he says, your nation's going to be enlarged. Your life will be enlarged. It will grow. There will be a significance to it. You feel like your life is being constricted by what you're going through and the situation that you're in, but it will be enlarged. That constriction will be taken away, and you will have a hope, and you will have enlargement, and you will have blessing, and there will be life for you. And your joy will increase. You will have joy, and it will increase, and it will increase, and it will increase. It will become more and more. They rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, as men rejoice when dividing the plunder. 4 times joy, rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. There's a hope. There's a future. There's something significant that's going to happen. Your life will change because of something that's coming. For as in the day, in verse 4, as in the day of Midian's defeat, you have been shattered. The yoke that burdens them, the bar across their shoulder, the rod of their oppressor. Every warrior's boot used in battle, every garment rolled in blood will be destined for burning, will be fuel for the fire. There will be freedom. You have been destroyed. You've been under the bondage of another nation. That will be the burden of that will be lifted from you. You will have freedom. There will be a sense of peace. War will be gone. Conflict will be gone. There will be peace that enters your life. There'll be joy. There'll be peace. There'll be blessing. There'll be an abundance of harvest. There'll be an appreciation. There'll be an honor. There will be a future. All of these words that Isaiah promises and prophesies in the midst of darkness and gloom and distress and no hope. Isaiah says there will be hope, there will be light, there will be future, there will be honor, there will be an enlargement of your territory, that constriction will be taken away. You will know God in greater and greater ways. And why is that? Why will all this happen? What will be the thing that which makes this all happen? He says in verse 6. And this is our verse that we've memorized and we sing about. For unto us a child is born. To us a son is given. And the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. What is going to change the life of the nation Israel? What is going to bring people out of darkness into light? What is going to bring them from dishonor to honor? What is going to bring them from no hope to hope? What is going to bring them from no future to a future? What is going to bring them out of their darkness and their gloom and their distress? It is a son that's given, a child that is born. His name is Jesus. Emmanuel. God will be with them again, is what the prophet is saying. God is coming again, and God will be with you again, and you will know him. And he will come to the nation, and he will come to your life, and he will take you out of everything that you're in now, and he will give you a future, and he will give you enlargement, and he will give you blessing, and most importantly, he will give you salvation. Because the government's on his shoulder. He has all authority to do that. The authority of heaven and earth is upon him. And what he says will happen, happens. He has authority to give salvation. He is called the Wonderful Counselor. He's the Wise One. He gives wisdom for life. He gives counsel for life. Other scripture verses say, come and take my counsel and receive Jesus as Lord and Savior. Come and take my counsel and draw near to God. Take my counsel and receive Jesus. The whole book of Proverbs is about wisdom saying, draw near to God. Take my counsel, live for God, understand who he is, receive Jesus as Lord and Savior. He's the mighty God. He's the wonderful counselor. He's the mighty God. Jesus is the power and majesty and dominion of God himself. Isaiah can rightly say that God is coming, that God with skin on is coming, and he will change the whole culture and the whole history and the whole way you are feeling and what you're in. Jesus is God with skin on, and he's powerful, and he's authoritative, and he's wise, and he has majesty and dominion and authority over all creation. And he's the everlasting Father. He is from eternity to eternity. Jesus is not just another king that's going to come and reign for 12 years and you'll have peace in the land. Jesus is the king that comes and will reign for eternity, and there will be an eternal peace. And he will bring us out of darkness, and he will bring us out of distress, and he will bring us out of gloom, and he will bring us out of all of that, and we will have a future. We'll have an eternal future, a future of peace, a future where there's no war and no conflict and no worry and no distress and no darkness and no gloom, because he's the eternal Father and he's the Prince of Peace. He will end fear. He will end conflict. And of the increase of his government and of peace there'll be no end. Again, that's the eternality of it. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness. He will do what is right and just and fair. There will never again be injustice. There will never again be wrong. There will never again be anybody says, that's not fair. There will never be any kind of that in the world again. And he will reign from that time on and forever. And the zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. That's the promise of God. The promise of God is rooted in a time when there was no hope, when there was no light, when there was no future, when there was no honor, when there was just distress and darkness and fear and gloom and utter blackness. And Isaiah comes along and says to the world at that time, the Son is coming. A child will be born. Emmanuel will come once again. And once again, you will have God with you. And he will lift you up out of the darkness. And he will honor you and lift you up out of the darkness and out of it into his kingdom of light, which will be forever and ever. See, when we sing about Emmanuel coming and the government on his shoulders, wonderful Counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, understand all that that means to not only that culture in which Isaiah first wrote, but to us. Because our world is no different. Our world today, for many, is a place of darkness and distress and fear and gloom. Anybody who watches the news today for even a little bit of time ends up in distress and gloom and wonders if there's a future and if there's hope and if there's anything that will save this humanity. And Isaiah comes along and says, the Son is coming. A child is born. His name is Emmanuel, God with us. And the government will be on his shoulders. And who is called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. It's Jesus. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. It's Jesus who saves our race, our planet. He's going to destroy the planet and recreate it, but Jesus is the one who saves us. The significance of Jesus coming as a child, as a son that is giving, a child is the born, is the significance of changing the very world, the very circumstance, the very situation, our very heart that we live with today. Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us. And the only way the world is saved, the only way humanity is saved, the only way Israel was brought out of its distress and darkness and gloom was Jesus. Was God being with them. The only way our lives are changed. The only way we have a hope for a future. The only way we have eternal peace. The only way we come out of darkness into light, gloom into joy, is through Jesus. We can have a little bit of joy here and there that we can manufacture on our own, but it's not lasting. It won't remain forever. We quickly drop back into gloom and distress and no hope. Jesus coming is hope for the world. It's hope for people. For all who are in darkness today, for all who are in distress today, for all who say, there's no hope for me. I'm in these circumstances and it's never going to change. Unto you a child is given. A son is given, a child is born. His name is Jesus. And he gives you hope. And he gives you future. And he gives you everlasting life. And your situation today is not the determination of what your future will be tomorrow. Because of the word nevertheless. God is the great nevertheless. No matter what you see with your eyes today and the circumstance you are in today, it does not mean that's the way it will be tomorrow. For with God, a son is given, a child is born. His name is Jesus. Jesus changes our present and he changes our future. There's hope. There's Jesus. I don't know what situation you're in. I don't know what you are distressed over. I don't know what draws gloom over your eyes and heart. But know that nevertheless, unto us a son is given. Unto us a child is born. And his name is Jesus, Emmanuel. And he is with you and will be with you again, even when you think all is lost. There's a future and a hope and honor and blessing for you through Jesus. So this Christmas, remember the significance of who Jesus is. Not just someone we sing about because it's a great song. He's the Savior of the world. He's God with skin on. He's the nevertheless to our current situation. May you know him and trust him. And may you have a renewed hope for your future. Amen. But Jesus is joy, and he's joy to the whole world, no matter what's going on. Nevertheless, Jesus. Thanks for joining us. May you take some time to think about that more. Maybe read it through again and end up, I think, praising Jesus for joy, for hope, for a future, and for everlasting life. Amen.